Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm CS Caraval from ZK Research, and we're going to be talking hybrid cloud today. And to help me with that, I've enlisted Prashanth Shenoy, who's a VP over at Broadcom. Prashanth, just a quick intro on yourself and what you do at Broadcom.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, ZS, for the invite here. Great to be talking with you again. It's been a while. So yeah, at Broadcom, I run the VCF division product and technical and solution architecture team. And that was my role back at VMware before we became part of Broadcom. But pretty excited to be talking to you on some of the transformations that we've seen in the market and what we've done as part of Broadcom.
Yeah, private cloud, hybrid cloud's interesting because over the past few years, I've noticed a big push from organizations looking to repatriate their workloads from public cloud back to private cloud. I think, our industry typically goes through these pendulum swings. Everything's going to be here and everything's going to be here. And I think we're in a swing now where we're moving things back to private cloud. And so from your perspective, do you agree with that? And then if so, what's driving that?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I would call it more of a broader reevaluation of where the workloads need to sit. And I would say one of the main reasons is kind of the expected outcome of the public cloud promise seems to have fallen a bit flat and around, I would say, 3 C's, if I would. Number one is the cost, right?
Yes.
People expected to have some major TCO benefits of evacuating their data center and moving to the public cloud. And that's not quite the outcome that they have seen, right? Mainly because of the refactoring of applications, which is pretty expensive as you move a traditional application to a cloud native application and try to refactor that. It's pretty big, right? The migration cost, the reskilling cost, for example, and then finally the ongoing public cloud commitment cost, right? Like big commits being drawn, et cetera. It's been the case. The second C is the complexity and chaos, right? So there's been so much application crawl and scrawl and sprawl, if you will, across various different business entities of a large enterprise organization. So not only is the cost skyrocketing, the complexity of managing those applications, the compliance requirement, the security, resiliency, all of that has been really painful for organizations. And some of them have failed to transform their operations as they've moved to a public cloud, and that has increased the complexity too. And number 3 is, I would say, inconsistency as well as compliance challenges that we've seen, right? Especially with the rise of AI, with sovereignty issues, data compliance issues, resiliency of the infrastructure itself of the public cloud, and keeping your business up and running. And you've seen all the outages, news, et cetera. And that has caused some of the challenges too, which again increase the cost. So I would say these are some of the reasons overall that customers are now taking a broader look at their workload strategy and seeing what is the right thing. And that's where private cloud, I would say, is making a huge comeback.
You also find that there's a strategic advantage to private cloud where it's not just about it's a cheaper, less complex alternative to public cloud, but there are actually some benefits it brings over and above that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the first things that I would like to say is what is a private cloud, right? Because private cloud doesn't equate to your on-premise data center, right? So for us, private cloud is more of a cloud operating model where your infrastructure is pretty consistent and can be deployed anywhere, obviously in your on-premise data center, in a co-location that is hosted by you, to the edge, or in a public cloud environment where it's managed by the CSP themselves or a managed service provider, right? So it's all about the cloud operating model where the infrastructure that you get on which you run your application has the private cloud operating model, but it has the flexibility of how you want to deploy it and where you want to deploy it. So I think that's number one. The benefit of that is it brings the best of both worlds, right? It brings the agility and the scale of a public cloud environment, if you will, that the developers really enjoy, but it brings that cost control, the resiliency, and the security needs that a lot of enterprise organizations require together, right? So that's kind of the big benefit, and it has all the benefits of that automation, operations, etc., that you see in the public cloud environment. So yes, I think that brings the advantage of not only having cost efficiency, but also getting that right performance, what the security and resiliency that is needed for a lot of enterprise organization.
Yeah, the cost argument's interesting too, because I do think, you think back to late 2019, early 2020, we were in the pandemic, a lot of IT pros just rushed to public cloud. And I understand why. They were just trying to keep their stuff up and running, right? And a little bit of desperation there. And now we're at about the 3 to 4 year mark of all those COVID contracts, and those are all coming due now. And what I'm finding is customers are getting sticker shock. They don't realize how much they're spending. And I actually think it's about that 3 to 4 year period where that TCO starts to tip the scales in favor of private cloud. If you've got a short-term projects and you're just trying to run an application for a month or something like that, you are better off in public cloud, I think. But and I'm not sure if your customers are following the same thing, but it seems that 3 year mark is about that break-even point where you do wind up having advantages over with a private cloud.
Yeah, you're spot on there, right? So now cloud has reached a pretty high level of maturity. And now for customers who have a pretty broad swath of applications and workload, they're seeing that cost element being pretty high on the scale. So that's absolutely one reason. And number two is there's a lot of these emerging technologies like AI that is causing them to rethink where should data reside, where should application reside, and what is the right outcome they're looking for, right? And number three, the maturity of the tools that customers can find themselves, not just in the public cloud world, the maturity of the operating model is making them rethink, hey, can I do this now in my own data center or in a hosted environment, but bring that experience that the developers so much enjoy in the public cloud right on premise, but have a lot more stringent cost control, performance, and resiliency benefit. I think that's where that, yes, the 3 to 4 year mark is happening, but also the maturity phase and kind of some of the emerging applications are also causing this rethink in terms of how to evaluate your cloud strategy. And that's where I think private cloud is making a big comeback.
And let's focus on your second C also code. So compliance. Have you seen a change in the attitude towards compliance? I know we live in a very, say, shaky macro right now. There's a lot of global macro events going on. And it seems that, especially with data sovereignty, CIOs want more control. I haven't seen this much focus on compliance in a long time. And I think there's almost been a renewed focus on that.
Yeah, I think in a huge reason for that. Also, and you've seen macro level like GDPR, a lot of regulations being put upon, predominantly focused on the privacy, the data sovereignty, the data access, and the compliance requirements across industry level, across big city, state, country level, right? So that's one of the key reasons. The second reason is the ongoing increase in cybersecurity challenges that our customers are facing, right? So, and the rise of malware and having a very comprehensive data loss strategy, data DLP kind of strategy, but also cyber threat recovery strategy and how fast can they recover from all these threats is also a big concern. And number three, the other side of the coin of security is around resiliency, right? Like customers run mission critical applications, and every company's business right now is their application and services that they provide to their end customers, right? And you need a pretty highly resilient infrastructure and a cloud platform. And they want to make sure that security and resiliency is built in to the infrastructure and the platform and not necessarily at the application level. So that level of thought process where it's not just the CIO, but it's the CISO, CFO, and CEO having that kind of conversation, it's getting to be a big factor, I would say.
Yeah, the other factor around compliance, too, and you brought this up already, is the A word, right? When you think of artificial intelligence, AI, there's not a company that I talked to today that doesn't have AI, at least on the roadmap. Most of them are experimenting with it. And I think when you consider the compute intensity of AI, the costs in a public cloud environment can just skyrocket out of hand. And so talk about the intersection of AI and private cloud, and what your customers are telling you about how they want to leverage private cloud to be able to test and run AI.
Yeah, I think it's a fundamentally interesting approach that customers are looking at. In fact, when we were just VMware, not as part of Broadcom, the most inbound request that we got last year was, hey, what are you doing to help us embrace the power of AI? And we are like, okay, that's an interesting question that you are reaching out to VMware. And they're like, the two reasons why are, number one, you're known to provide a highly efficient infrastructure platform. Number two, you do a pretty good job of doing that in our own data center. And number three, one of the biggest challenges that we have right now is around, we have a lot of intellectual property and our own IP and a lot of data that we don't want to just give to an LLM model in a public cloud space and expose ourselves to risk and IP challenges, et cetera. So what can you do to help get that power of Gen AI, but do it in our own data centers so we can train the model or fine-tune the model, what we call RAG, in our own data center space, but get that benefit on premise, right? But all the benefits of Gen AI. And I think that's where the intersection of AI and private cloud has come together. So what we call private AI, right? So it's a fundamental architectural approach where you get all of the benefits and gains of using Gen AI applications, but with that privacy needs, the cost, compliance, performance needs that a lot of enterprises are looking towards. And that, I would feel, is a very critical intersection of Gen AI, AI, and private cloud.
Yeah, so the benefits of being able to deploy it, but not having to worry about the risks of that you typically face with public cloud, and certainly from when you think about the big top concern of AI is security and compliance, responsible AI. Private cloud certainly does seem to fit it better. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about VMware's specifically. Talk about VMware's approach to private cloud.
Yeah. So for us, it's very simple, right? So we want to be known as the best private cloud infrastructure platform in the industry, bar none. And we are well on our way of having done that over the last decade or so, but we have some more work to do, right? So that's our job. Provide an infrastructure platform, private cloud infrastructure platform that our customers can use to run their mission critical applications, but give them the flexibility to run it on their own in their own data center or a colo, or get it as a managed service through our hyperscalers or to our CSPs, right? So that's number one, right? Number two is bring that, as I was saying, that frictionless cloud experience that the developers so crave for, that they're very used to in the public cloud, right on premise, right? Which means that it has to be self-service in nature, right? You don't need to open tickets to IT to get a VPC running. You should be able to get it in a very self-service manner and in a highly automated manner. That's number two. And number three is have that security and resiliency as top of mind at the infrastructure level, at the workload level, at the data level. So for us, that's been the focus for us, is to build that private cloud that helps you modernize your infrastructure on premise, that gives you a cloud experience for your developers and your IT operators. And three, that has that security and resiliency as top of mind. But all the more important, as we've been having that discussion, do it with the best possible total cost of ownership, right? Because if you can't help make it operationally efficient, have cost savings from an infrastructure consolidation, from labor savings, et cetera, the business benefit of private cloud falls flat, right? It's not just a technical benefit, but also the business value of doing it in an operationally efficient and cost-effective manner. So that's where our mission is, and that's what we are working towards. And you'll hear us more in the next couple of weeks on that, couple of months. Yeah.
Well, now VCF isn't the only private cloud platform out there. And I'm curious, if someone were to ask you what are the top 2 or 3 core attributes of VCF where you think makes it the right platform for private cloud, what would you say those are?
Yeah, I think the genesis and the foundational element of where VCF started was vSphere, right? So I think we would all agree that there wouldn't be any cloud if there was no virtualization. So
that's
cloud
fair to say.
computing
I mean, you make
it's
applications portable, and you've been doing that for a long time. So
and that's where cloud computing started. So we've had 20 plus history as part of being VMware to have done this, right? So we are starting off with the right foundational platform. Number two, I think our goal is to fully virtualize every part of your infrastructure. And we have done that so far. We have virtualized compute, we have virtualized storage, we have virtualized networking, and then we have built that management and operations platform that is highly automated in nature. So the good part is we have packaged all of that into a single integrated product, which very few vendors are able to do in a very consistent and scalable manner with that performance capability. So I think that's the second aspect that I feel we have. And three is, we do have a very broad ecosystem of partners, because we know that we are not the only, we cannot do it by ourselves. Our customers still want that flexibility and choice of how they want to manage this, how they want to deploy this, where they want to deploy this, and what kind of value-added services that they can add on top of the infrastructure. So that's why having a breadth of ecosystem from the ISVs, from the OEMs, from the hyperscalers, from the CSPs, and we've been doing this now for well over a decade. So those are some of the key reasons that I feel we are in a very prime position to help drive that market transformation in private cloud.
Yeah, from the customers that I've talked to, I think one of the things they like most is the integrated, almost engineered system with your broad ecosystem. I think most customers can grab a handful of equipment and try and build their own private cloud, but then they're going to spend the better part of 6 months to a year tweaking and tuning and updating the system to make sure it runs optimally. And frankly, that's not easy to do. Right?
They become their own system integrators. They're trying to stitch all of these things together, and it's a pretty painful and arduous task.
Yeah, and so VMware, to me, has done a lot of that heavy lifting to make the deployment for their customers simpler. And sometimes I think it goes unnoticed in the industry that making something simple is actually a very difficult thing to do. Right, it's easier just to hand yourself a pile of boxes and try and deploy it yourself. But you're right, no one wants to be in the systems integrator business other than systems integrators. So, so thanks for the update on VCF, the competitive differentiators. Just one last question, Prashanth. So for the audience out there, for the IT pros reconsidering their cloud strategy now, wanting to head down this private cloud path, what are a couple of pieces of advice you can give them? How does one get started here?
Yeah. I always go with the crawl, walk, run kind of phase. But step one is truly understand what does a good private cloud look like and what is the future state architecture for that private cloud, right? Like start with the end vision in mind. Number two, assess your own maturity. And when I say the maturity, it's not just the technology, but really, really critical on the people and the processes. It's always about people, process, and technology, right? That's number two. So you can have a benchmark against your own current state and how you compare yourself with the peers of who have done a really good private cloud, right? So that's, I would say, number two. Number three, truly focus on specific use cases of what you want to achieve. For some customers, it may be like, hey, I want a lot more automation in my data center. For some, it may be I want to provide a self-service catalog of services to my line of business, right? So for some, it may be around disaster and ransomware recovery. So the use cases of why you want a private cloud varies from customer to customer and where they want to start. So think about those critical use cases so you can show immediate value to your stakeholders, to your business entities, to your CFO, so you can expand that to a broader set of use case. That would be, I would say, number three. And number four, bring your people along the way, because you will have to break silos within the organization, where a lot of, especially large enterprise organizations, have their own network silos, their compute silos, their storage silos. So if you try to stitch it together, you're going to have a hard time. So you're going to have a bottoms-down approach, or like top-down approach of like, let's think platform, cloud operating model, and let's focus on use case rather than let's think about individual piecemeal components. So that would be my kind of advice talking to our customers.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that last point. It seems, I've been an analyst a long time. It seems I've been writing about this trend of breaking down those IT silos for the better part of 20 years. And I think in a lot of cases, Prashanth, historically, maybe that was a bit of a solution looking for a problem. But I think today in this AI-driven hybrid cloud world where things do have to work together, that's no longer, the problem came to IT. And so they either get on board with breaking down the silos or they're going to struggle, I think. And so I'm glad you brought that up. So anything else you want to add?
No, I think this is an exciting journey for us. And I think us becoming part of Broadcom gives us that, I would say, this intense focus on building that private cloud, right? And with the strength that Broadcom brings from an R&D investment, the focused execution, and the scale of ecosystem that we have. So I'm pretty much looking forward to talking more about this and listening to our customers as part of our VMware Explore happening over the next couple of months, and seeing the success of our customers as they embark on the journey with us.
That's right. Explore coming up at the end of August, and I think people watching this can certainly register and show up and see VCF in action, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It is going to be a lot of exciting new innovations and announcements that we're going to do as part of this. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, and I'll see you there.
Awesome. Thanks, ZS.
Okay. So on behalf of Prashanth Shenoy, I'm ZS Caravallo from ZK Reaches. Thanks for watching. Please hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time on the next episode of ZKast. Thanks, Prashanth.